Previously on the Rubin Report.
The United Nations should be doing this, but they don't do it. They turned off my teleprompter.
On location in Brisbane. You got to be kidding me.
When I saw you slinging shots behind the coffee bar, I thought this guy might run for president.
It is good to defend your culture. It's good to defend your borders. It's good to have kids. We live, people, and back in action in the US of A in the free state of Florida. I am Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is October 29th, 2025. We completed the about 13-hour flight direct from Brisbane to San Francisco, couple-hour layover there, then like a 5-6 hour flight back to Florida, got back in late last night. We are all various levels of jet lagged. There was a debate, do you take the day off? And we said, no, the people need more. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening in the world. The people come here for sanity, and that is what we are going to deliver. We shall see. It was really a wonderful 14 days in Australia. I just want to give a big thanks to everybody that came to the shows and just made our trip absolutely wonderful. I love the country. I love the people. One of the things that I love about traveling in general is when I talk to people and I see what issues are kind of the same in their countries, what issues are different. It does help me frame what I do here on the show. And it really is just so cool that I can go to a country, a continent that is basically half the world away, if not more, if you were just traversing the globe, and that people show up. And they know who I am, and they see me, and we hug, and we talk, and we break bread. It's really awesome. And they give me gifts, by the way. I got many gifts. Usually people give me books or things for the kids, you know, plushies, stuffed animals, things like that. I got two, actually. Make Australia Great Again hat. I thought that was fun, and it really was just fantastic. Ate some Australian Wagyu, had a good time, patted a koala on the bum, and a kangaroo on the head. And okay, let's just dive back in. But I do warn you, I am like slightly delusional right now with jet lag, but we did want to do the live show for you. So yeah, it's good to be back. Obviously, what we're going to focus on, at least at the top of the show, is the New York City mayoral race. Because even when I was in Australia, even though they are thousands and thousands of miles away, they are looking at that because they look at America. The entire world over looks at America for leadership. Sometimes we're pretty good about leading, sometimes we're not. I think overall America is doing a much better job right now. But New York City, for a long time, was our number one city. It was the epicenter of capitalism and culture and all of those things. And it is on the verge of a communist collapse. And I mean that quite literally. So there's been a whole bunch of stuff that's come out over the last couple of days as the race finally gets close now. We're only a couple days away from seeing what happens. But the big kind of scandal at the moment, you've probably seen at least a portion of this video already, is that Zohran Mamdani, who now is playing victim, he's got to play victim because he's a leftist and there is nothing that a leftist likes more than playing victim. He is being called out for lying about his aunt and how she did not feel safe riding the subway after 9/11.
I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
Okay, so it turns out the lady right there that you saw in the picture, she does not wear a hijab. She's also not his aunt, and she didn't live in New York subway, in a New York subway. She didn't live in New York City after 9/11. Listen to this from Persian Jewish ex-commentator Zohran Mamdani's aunt neither wears a hijab nor lived in New York City before, during, or after 9/11. In fact, she lived in Tanzania from January 2000 to December 2003. So, of course, he finally gets called out on this. The media, which has basically just been sucking this guy off for a year straight. That's a hell of a suck job. But he finally gets called out on it. Like, it's a little excessive. You know what I mean? Like, at some point, you're going to go, okay. They finally called him out on this, and here he is furthering the lie.
Recently, in a recent address about Islamophobia, you referenced your aunt and some of the harassment she was facing post 9/11. Is that a blood relative?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was speaking about my aunt. I was speaking about Zera Fui, my father's cousin, sadly passed away a few years ago. And for the takeaway from my more than 10-minute address about Islamophobia in this race and in this city to be the question of my aunt tells you everything about Andrew Cuomo and his inability to reckon with a crisis of his own.
All right, well, you just admitted it, bro. She ain't your aunt. She ain't aunt or aunt. She is your father's cousin. That is not your aunt. So why didn't you just say it that way? Now, you were making up the story altogether anyway. And of course, it was during a 10-minute speech about Islamophobia. And now you want to convince everyone that Andrew Cuomo is an Islamophobe. As we discussed before, Islamophobia is a completely made-up word. We'll have more on that in just a second. And you have every right to have a fear of Islam if you are a freedom-loving person. A phobia is an irrational fear, but hold that for just a second. Here he is doubling down again on the lie.
I was at the press conference yesterday. They said, can you tell us who your aunt is, who you were referring to? I said, yes, this is my aunt. This is my Zera Fui. This is my father's cousin, and this was her story.
So how can you convince New Yorkers if that is the type of person that you are, in other words, that you don't tell the truth?
Well, it's not a lie. My father's cousin is my aunt. That's how I referred to her growing up my whole life, Zera Fui. And I think to have the takeaway from the New York Post and so many others after I gave a speech outside of a mosque for 10 minutes about the Islamophobia we've seen in this race and in our politics to be the question of whether or not Zera Fui was my aunt.
No, your father's cousin is not your aunt. Again, like you might think all things considered in that he's a communist and he's jihad adjacent and all of those things, this isn't the biggest deal. But even now, I mean, this is so consistent with these guys. They make up things, right? He wanted to make up stories so that his aunt, that he, and by extension, Muslims were the victims of 9/11. I was in New York during 9/11. My dad was at his office during 9/11, saw the second plane hit the tower. I assure you that Zohran Mamdani and his aunt were not the victim during 9/11. My cousin was a firefighter who went there. Okay, all that aside, but he wants to be a victim. So why not, when you get called out on this, just admit that your father's cousin is not your aunt. That's your second cousin. That's how it works, right? It's your second cousin or your cousin once removed, different generation. It's your, I don't even want to explain all this. You get it. He just can't tell the truth. But what this really is about is the victimhood, his desire for victimhood. And here it continues.
I get messages that say the only good Muslim is a dead Muslim. I get threats on my life. On the people that I love. And I try not to talk about it. Because the function of racism, as Toni Morrison said, is distraction.
I try not to talk about it, but I'm a method actor and pretend cry and I blink a lot and I do all the things. I'm always talking about it, but I try not to talk about it. It's all fake and everything else. Guys, people say horrible things to me. I get messages like you wouldn't believe. I don't sit here with crocodile tears and pretend because I don't think victimhood is a virtue, right? Nor do I want you to feel somehow guilty about it or something like that. And that's why you must support me. It's absurd. It's patently absurd. And he's also just making it up. But what he's really trying to do is create some energy around this word Islamophobia. So now I want to read this Christopher Hitchens quote. You may remember a couple of days in Australia, I was trying to get it right. I kind of butchered it. We sort of got there, but this is the exact quote that I was referencing, the great Christopher Hitchens. Islamophobia, a word created by fascists and used by cowards to manipulate morons. And that is right. Islam is a radical religion. It does not mean that every Muslim is radical, obviously, but everywhere that Islam takes root is bad for liberal values. It is bad for freedom. It is good for autocracy and control. It's bad for women that don't want to be in a burqa. It's certainly bad for gays. It's definitely bad for Jews. Definitely bad for Christians, definitely bad for Baha'i and Hindus and any other religious faith. That is just the truth. And by the way, it's not that great for nominal Muslims either. There are something like 40, I think it's 48, but you can fact check me. We can check it right now. How many Muslim nations are there? Tell me how it's going for minorities in any of those Muslim majority nations. And then they come to the Western nations and tell you that they are the victims while we're allowing them to be free. It's patently absurd. Here's Zohran in his closing statement, basically saying that all of us are Islamophobic bigots.
Cuomo laugh and agree when a radio show host said that I would cheer another 9/11, when I listened to the current mayor of this city explaining his decision to endorse Andrew Cuomo as a decision to ensure that New York City does not become Europe, that we do not leave it to violent extremists who burn churches in Nigeria. When I listen to all of this and then turn on TV and see ads that have the words of terrorism and jihad on top of my face, that not only mock the way that I eat, but are all intended to terrify New Yorkers as to the prospect of having a Muslim mayor, a reflection of Islamophobia within our political system that has become so endemic that when we hear it, we do not know from which party it comes. We just know that it is a fact of life in our city's politics. And amidst all of this, the focus of so many is just how much bigotry they can engage in.
Sorry, bro. This is not going to work. Well, it might work in New York City, but it is not going to work on regular people. You so want to be the victim. If there were people attacking Muslims right now, just going after random Muslims, if there were, I don't know, marches in the street with thousands of people calling to exterminate a Muslim country or something like that from the river to the sea, I would speak up about it, because Muslims have every right to be in the United States and every right to be in other countries. But you are using the cudgel of a fake word to import bad ideas. You are friends, at the very least, friends with terrorist sympathizers. Your imam is a co-conspirator, an unindicted co-conspirator in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. You refuse to condemn the phrase globalize the Intifada. This shit will not fly. It might fly in New York right now, but if America is going to succeed, this shit will not fly. How many, and again, so people don't want a Muslim mayor in New York City. Okay, so there are, do we get the exact number? I think it's 48 Muslim countries, if I'm not mistaken. How many Christian and Jewish and atheist mayors are there in Muslim nations? And by the way, we need only look at the UK and see what's happened, as there are 53 Muslim majority nations, I'm being told right now. So I even shortchanged it a little bit. And again, in all 53, show me all the Christian mayors and governors and heads of state and everything else. Now, ironically, in the place this douchebag hates the most, Israel, there are plenty of Muslim citizens of Israel, Muslim Arab citizens of Israel who've been on the Supreme Court and everywhere else. But let's put that aside for a second. What he is desperately trying to do is make it seem that he, and then by extensions, Muslims are the victims right now, so you must give them more power. And as you've given him, as they've been given more power in places like the UK, it has not gone well. I would recommend, or I wouldn't recommend actually, you go to London and see how it's going. Now here's Christopher Hitchens in 2009.
This is very urgent business, ladies and gentlemen, I beseech you. Resist it while you still can, and before the right to complain is taken away from you, which will be the next thing. You will be told you can't complain because you're Islamophobic. The term is already being introduced into the culture as if it was an accusation of race hatred, for example, or bigotry, whereas it's only the objection to the preachings of a very extreme and absolutist religion. Watch out for these symptoms. They are not just symptoms of surrender, very often ecumenically offered to you by men of God in other robes, Christian and Jewish and smarmy ecumenical. These are the ones who hold open the gates for the barbarians. The barbarians never take a city till someone holds the gates open for them. And it's your own preachers who will do it for you, and your own multicultural authorities who will do it for you. Resist it while you can. And if you wonder what will happen if you don't, look and see how a cricket team in Middlesex in England had to change its name by force last week, because it was called, and had been for years, the Middlesex Crusaders. Look and see how stories about little pigs can't be taught to children in English schools anymore, lest offense be taken by the religion of peace. Resist it while you can.
You know, I want to update a quote that I use on this show all the time, and I always credit him for coming up with the original idea, Douglas Murray. One day the barbarians will be at the gate and we'll be debating what gender pronouns to call them. How about one day the barbarians will be at the gate and we'll be debating whether we're Islamophobes or not? That really is the idea here. We know this is not good. We all deep down know it, but it is going to happen. And I love how He talks about the Christian and Jewish leaders who usher this nonsense in. So let's get to one of those people. This is a guy by the name of Jon. His real name is, I think it was Stewart Leibowitz, if I'm not mistaken. He changed his name to Jon Stewart to become a TV star, because I guess he thought people don't like Jews or something. And he became a big progressive hero. As I often say, he should be in the Bill Maher camp. He should have been in the Bill Maher camp, and he has failed miserably and ushered in all of these bad ideas. Here he is, very excited that New York City will finally have a democratic, socialist, Muslim mayor.
I wish you all the best. Honestly, I think any New Yorker who looks at someone getting an opportunity, who's representing communities that have not been as represented, a Muslim, a young person, a progressive, a democratic socialist, there are so many different communities that are looking to you, and this, I hate to put it on you, as a bit of a Jackie Robinson moment. And I know that probably wields some weight, but man, oh man, what an exciting opportunity.
Thank you.
And I wish you the best.
Thank you.
He's actually gross. Jon Stewart, you are actually gross. I don't know where the Ilhan Omar puke bucket is, but we may have to put Jon Stewart's face on it. He's actually disgusting. Dude, you became a star because it was like this kitschy, fun way of doing comedy and poking fun at the power. And now you are backing a Democrat socialist. It's an underserved community of Democrat socialists. And it's so, who gives an F that he's Muslim? That's not the point. If he was a Muslim and he was out there and he could condemn globalize the Intifada and he wasn't for defunding the police and didn't have a series and tell you right to your face, New Yorkers, that he will abide by the International Criminal Court rather than the US Constitution. And if he was a good man, it wouldn't matter if he was Muslim or not, and many good people would support him. But Jon Stewart, I know you're not really a Jew anymore. You're just Leibowitz, I should call you. You're a Jew, but, right? Because you only mention Jew, that you're a Jew, but to say that you're not really a Jew and you'll always side with the people who kill a Jew. I assume you live in New York City. I think you have a farm outside of New York City too, which you're probably gonna have to spend a lot of time on, because when the pogroms come, Leibowitz, it's not going to work out for you. And just watch his radicalism. Here he is. These are two videos spliced together. And just, this guy has been up to this for years.
The boot of the NYPD is on your neck. It's been laced by the IDF. I think of how the NYPD and the IDF have had a relationship for many years, a relationship that has meant, tactics of oppression crossing from one country to the other, and that has meant an increased, surveillance and oppression of marginalized people wherever they may be. The way that prisons are set up in our society, I would argue that they do not work. They do not make us safer. The instinct is to just take that person, the source of that harm, the source of that issue, and then just throw them away. Put them in a cage and throw away the key.
Well, if somebody rapes your aunt, you might want them put away. And you might want to throw away the key if they, murder your kids or something like that. Also, of course, trying to somehow combine the NYPD and the IDF. It's all grotesque nonsense. It's grotesque nonsense. But we've been through this before. I mean this as someone that's lived in New York City. New York City has had its ups and downs over the years. And every time it elects one of these bananas lefties, it basically destroys the New York City, and then a cycle or two later, they elect someone who cleans it up. I saw this morning, and I was like, we've got to put this in the show. It's a full video on YouTube. Maybe we'll put a link to the full thing. But this is just a portion about how bad New York City was back in the 1970s, when the government completely and utterly failed, the policing utterly failed, which led to the rise of the Guardian Angels. And you might know the Guardian Angels because there was a guy with a funny hat by the name of Curtis Sliwa, who is now running against Mamdani in that group. Take a look.
New York City nearly died between 1975 and 1981. Riding the subway became an exercise in calculated risk, as crime on trains jumped 40% between 1975 and 1980. Passengers learned to avoid empty cars, clutch bags tightly, and never make eye contact with anyone who looked threatening. The trains themselves fell apart from deferred maintenance, catching fire, losing doors, and stranding riders deep underground. Platforms reeked of urine and burnt electrical wiring, while homeless people established encampments in abandoned stations. Broken lights created pools of darkness where muggers waited for victims. Middle-class New Yorkers who could afford alternatives abandoned mass transit entirely, taking cabs or moving to car-dependent suburbs. Curtis Sliwa organized 13 volunteers to patrol subway trains in February 1979, wearing red berets and guardian angels jackets to provide the protection that overwhelmed police couldn't deliver. The angels walked through subway cars in groups, their red berets sending a message that someone still cared about public safety. The angels represented citizen frustration with institutional failure, ordinary people taking extraordinary risks because government had abandoned its core responsibilities.
Okay, Joseph, let's make sure we get the link to that full video in the description. It's worth taking a look at because you can really see, it's only about 12 minutes or so, but you can really see when you choose, and it is a choice, when you choose decline, when you choose leftism, when you choose to not police properly, when you choose to care about all sorts of things except the people who live in your city, you can destroy your city. Now, of course, what's particularly interesting, and I would say a bit ironic about that clip, is that then led to the rise of the Guardian Angels and Curtis Sliwa. And I remember growing up in the early 80s, we used to go to the New York City a lot. My great-grandparents and grandparents lived there. And I remember at that time when it was really, really bad, and we used to not go to Times Square, and we'd come out of the Midtown Tunnel, and there'd be all these homeless people trying to wash your windows and all sorts of stuff. And I remember also, I do remember watching like Channel 11 WPIX, for those of you that lived in New York back then, them talking about Curtis Sliwa. And it was sort of like a joke that this guy has come with these funny hats and their red jackets to save New York City, but they did a good job. Now, of course, the irony is that Sliwa right now is the third man in the race. So there's obviously Mamdani, there's Cuomo, and Sliwa. And by most estimations, if Sliwa was to drop out with about the 10% that it looks like he's going to get, then Cuomo would be competitive. It would be within, 2 or 3 points. So Sliwa, a man who did the right thing back then in the late 70s into the early 80s, he did the right thing, protected New York City. As I've said on the show many times, I think he is a good, decent man and a good New Yorker and loves that place and would make a fine mayor, but he has no chance of winning. And if he does not drop out now, he could then lead to the rise of the true destruction of New York City. So irony, I guess irony isn't dead. I always say irony's dead. It's back, at least right now in New York City. But decline is a choice. Who says it all the time? Ron DeSantis, the mayor of a state that refuses to decline, actually focuses on flourishing instead. And here is DeSantis on what will happen to New York City if Zohran is elected.
He is so far left, and he mixes his leftism with Islamism. He's going to make the de Blasio years look like the golden age. And I can tell you in Florida, we're affected by this just with the law enforcement alone. If you're working in NYPD, do you want to go out there and risk your life knowing that the mayor hates you? No, a lot of them are not going to want to do that. And in Florida, we've established a $5,000 recruitment bonus. So if you are somebody that doesn't want to serve under that guy as mayor, you come to Florida, any state or local law enforcement agency, you get $5,000 right at the top.
Think how absolutely stark the contrast is between Florida and New York right now, right? We tell people to defend themselves. They tell you not to defend yourselves. We back the police. They fully don't back the police. We don't let people take over roadways. And as a matter of fact, Ron DeSantis, it made news, came on this show and said, if they do block the roadway, it's your right to go right through them. There, they let you just take over roads all the time. How can you do business? I mean, the litany of things. It is never ending. And thus we see a giant population transfer. And we will see what happens after this. But in the video that we showed you before, a moment ago, they also talked about how the middle class people who had the means to flee could flee. So what will happen is, we already know a huge amount of the upper income people, they have to go. Like, you'd have to be insane not to go because someone will probably kill you at some point, right? Like, why wouldn't they? You're being told you are awful. And at the same time, they're telling you you're awful. They also need your money for their big government programs. You've got to get out. The next version will be that as those people get out, the government will now need more money. It will have to lean more on the middle class people. They will have to get out too, right? They will have to leave. It is as simple as that. And then it will just be how it is. You think we've had a liberal conservative divide or a red blue divide? We will have a divide of crazy control, communist lunacy with a dash of jihad, and then we will have places that are free. It's up to you to figure out which one you want to live in. Let's talk about Prolon for a minute, and then we have a video of another horrible person. Everyone sets health goals, lose weight, eat better, exercise more, but without a plan, it's easy to lose momentum. That's where Prolon comes in. Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet gives you a science-backed, structured approach to achieve real results. In just 5 days, it helps you lose weight, burn fat, and support metabolic health, all while protecting lean muscle and letting you enjoy real food. Developed over decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by top medical centers, Prolon's plant-based programs include soups, snacks, and drinks that nourish your body while keeping it in a fasting state. This triggers cellular rejuvenation, which is a process that helps renew and repair your cells from within. And now there's Prolon's Next Gen, featuring 100% organic soups and teas, rich flavors, and ready-to-eat meals for even more convenience. For a limited time, you can get 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to the 5-day program. Just visit prolonlife.com. That's PROLONLIFE.com/Dave to claim your discount and bonus gift. Man, I've lost weight even since we recorded that video. We were eating right in Australia, and we were working. It was funny. We really challenged. This is a good example, sidebar from the show for just a second, but hang out with people that make you better. I got to tell you, being on the road with these 5 guys for the last 14 days, like, we were challenging each other to eat right, to work out, take long walks, like, just get out there and enjoy the good life. And I think everyone, I feel better than when I left. You guys, like, everybody, it was just a great trip. And yes, there was some tequila, and we had some Shiraz, and there was a weird night at the bowling alley in the arcade, but okay, all right, whatever. Another horrible person who lies about everything is also obviously a leftist. I'm talking about Gavin Newsom, and he's been caught in a series of lies over the last couple of days as he gears up for his 2028 presidential election. I thought this was quite good by C3, who's an ex-commentator. Just in the last 2 days, Gavin Newsom got caught lying about his hoop dreams childhood. Zohran Mamdani got caught lying about his aunt facing Islamophobic New York City subway rides after 9/11. All the Democrats do is lie, from their politicians to their media, never the truth. So you may remember, if you saw the show a couple of days ago, we played this clip of Newsom pretending that he grew up having to make sandwiches for himself, and basically he was a latchkey kid and they had no money. Meanwhile, it turns out there were literal articles written about him in high school that he was part of the elite rich people. Father worked for Paul Getty. Grandfather was an oil tycoon. He's now worth about $400 million, related to Nancy Pelosi. Just look at him. Do you think this kid grew up poor? Listen to this from the New York Post. Newsom's story about hustling to pay bills raises eyebrows given his family ties to billionaire. Look at that picture. Do you think that is the poor kid? He looks like the kid from Compton, right? Like that was a kid growing up in, upper Harlem and struggling. And anyway, here's C3 on Twitter again. Gavin Hoodrat Newsom in the San Francisco projects, 1984. Look at him. Like, he's dripping. Well, it's dripping with evil, but with a side of money, as he looks like he's reading like the Financial Times. It's absolutely disgusting. Kevin Dalton, who is a Californian who has just relentlessly been on the front end of just fighting Gavin Newsom, but for some reason still lives there. He put this up. I thought this was pretty good. Most people don't realize that Boys in the Hood was based on Gavin Newsom's life story. Now there's the Boys in the Hood over there, and that's Gavin Newsom. And look how evil he looks, dripping with evil, 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 evil. Yeah, Gavin, I should clarify, probably personally worth about 30 mil. Plumpjack Winery, which he kept open during COVID while he closed other people's wineries, that's his winery, is worth about 400 mil. So he's probably really worth a lot more than 30 mil. I don't begrudge anyone any money that they've earned, but a lifelong public servant does make you wonder. So this is also interesting. He got caught this week also. You may remember this clip. We showed it to you on the show. He has a podcast now, which for some reason they will not have me on, even though I've asked many times. Where a few weeks before Charlie was murdered, he had Charlie Kirk on, and he was gushing about how much his son loves Charlie. So take a look at that again, and then we'll show you where the lie is.
Last night, trying to put my son to bed, he's like, "No, Dad, what time? What time's Charlie gonna be here? What time?" And I'm like, "Dude, you're in school tomorrow." He's 13. He's like, no. This morning, wakes up at 6 something. He's like, "I'm coming." I'm like, he literally would not leave the house.
Did you let him take off school?
No, he did. Of course not. He's not here for a good reason. But the point is,
you canceled school for like 2 years. One day.
The point is the point, which is you are making a damn dent.
Thank you. I'm kidding.
God, I miss Charlie. Even the way right there, he made a really good joke. Did you let him take off school? No, but you let them take off school for 2 years. And then he turns and smiles at somebody. Like he knew at times when he was being a little naughty. Like he was just great. But there he is, Gavin Newsom. His son was a super fan who wanted to take the day off school to go see Charlie Kirk. However, now that he's gearing up for the run on television, he was on Elex Michaelson, who's a buddy of mine, his new show on CNN. And here's Gavin Newsom striking a slightly different tune.
That's your son, obviously a fan of Charlie Kirk. What was the conversation like between you and your son after Charlie Kirk was assassinated?
Well, he called me, I don't know how he got a phone, but he called me from school that day, really alarmed. And all his friends were around the phone that wanted me to somehow express or understand what was going on. He wanted to know if he was dead. He wasn't a fan of him as much as he was familiar with him.
Oh, Gav, we'll do a quick edit on that, right? And we'll put it together for social media. Super fan, wasn't a fan, just familiar. Everything that evil lizard snake person says is a lie designed to maximize his power and break your brain. It is as simple as that. Also, I don't know why can't his son have the phone at school? Does the school ban? I'll pretend that part maybe is true. He didn't know how his son could get a phone. How could, whatever. Here's Gavin now, because he clearly strikes everyone as a deeply religious man. Here he is quoting scripture to attack Trump over SNAP food benefits.
It's also interesting to me because I spent a little time at a wonderful Jesuit university. If there was anything I remember about my 4 years with Father Cause, is that the New Testament and Old Testament have one thing dominantly in common. In Matthew and Isaiah, Luke, Proverbs, go down the list. It's around food. It's about serving those that are hungry. It's not a suggestion in the Old and New Testament. It's core and central to what it is to align to God's will, period, full stop. I say that because these guys need to stop the BS in Washington, D.C.
You know, I always say that thing. It's like, I don't want to hold hatred in my heart. I really don't, and I try not to, but I just don't even know what to say. First off, to whatever extent you're even right about, I've heard him quoting scripture is just so profoundly absurd, but it doesn't say the government has to do it. How about you do it? If you're worth about $300 million, you got the $400 million Plumpjack winery, how about you just open it up and feed people there and get donations to do it? Why do you want everything to come from up here? But I'm not talking about God in your case, right? Why do you want everything to come from the government and hand down to the peasants down here? How about opening your heart instead? But I know you don't have one. But if you had a heart, what I would recommend is opening that heart and then opening your wallet. And that might be the more biblical thing to do, Gavin. But he is just such a fraud at every level. So the other thing he's been going off on is that Donald Trump is renovating the East Wing of the White House with some of his own money and private money. It will not cost taxpayers a dime. But he's freaking out about that. Meanwhile, he was asked about some of the renovations happening in Sacramento, which of course is the capital of communist California. They're doing a capital renovation, which is going to cost the taxpayers $1.2 billion. And knowing California, it will cost much more than that and never be completed. He has no answers about how that's going.
An off-topic question, but I think both of you mentioned the ballroom. I want to first acknowledge that neither one of you are leading the Capitol Annex project, but Mr. Attorney General, you voted to approve it in 2018. Mr. Governor, the Department of General Services, which you oversee, is part of it. It has been 3 years since the legislature updated the public on the cost of that project. It is happening right now. Maybe one of your windows could probably oversee it. You can see the construction is happening, but yet the legislature's Joint Rules Committee refuses to provide an update. We have reported that they have violated the Legislative Open Records Act. They are continuing to withhold public records. I have asked for an interview for more than a year now, and no one will provide an update. I mean, is that appropriate on one of the most expensive buildings in the United States at this point?
You're my attorney. By the way, I don't think it's appropriate. They should provide you the information, period, full stop. But for you to conflate or compare and contrast is, with all due respect, I think that I would separate the ballroom and what Donald Trump just did in desecration and the process and that he evolved and the fact that he secured $300 million under curious circumstances.
I'd like to change my opinion. I do have to hold a little hatred for him. I think you should have a little lockbox. Remember Al Gore had a lockbox a long time ago for Social Security? I think it's maybe okay in your heart. You have a great heart. You're a hopeful person. You like to help people and do right by people, which I largely do. But maybe you can have just like a little box to hold your hate, because otherwise it's just gonna spew out all the time. Like it's just. So first off, that you could see his answer there. It's just so, it's the desecration of the East Wing. Donald Trump knows how to do one thing, is build things. He's going to build a big, beautiful ballroom, which by the way, some people are saying they should call it the Charlie Kirk honorary ballroom or something like that. We'll see about that. But the fact that he has this righteous indignation while a reporter's saying 3 years ago, this thing was, we budgeted this thing $1.1 billion. We can't get any updated numbers. How much is it costing? What work has been done? And he's just such a smug, evil freak. And by the way, you think $1.1 billion is a lot? You know how much this person got for a railway? They were trying to build high-speed rail from Los Angeles to San Francisco. They got a budget of $128 billion for it. This is about 10 years ago, and it was supposed to take a couple of years. They basically have bailed on the project. They ended up building it from LA to, I think, Modesto or something, or Bakersfield, right? Bakersfield, I love Bakersfield. Saw Frankie Valli in concert there for the first time, outdoor concert about a decade ago. Anyway, and they have just bailed on it. So everything they do is a giant slush fund, but the man doesn't mind lying about everything. Is there a word for people that lie about everything all the time? And do we have video of a renowned psychologist who can explain that condition clearly?
The psychopath either can't or won't do that. Psychopaths have no compassion, but they don't learn from experience either. And so that means that not only does the psychopath have no compassion for you, he has absolutely no compassion for himself tomorrow. And then you think, oh, well, those are the same thing. Why? Well, you're not feeling what your future self is feeling now any more than you're feeling what someone else is feeling now. Like a normal person can think of their future self and they can think of the experience of that self and it matters. Just like they can think of the experience of someone else and it matters. The psychopath either can't or won't do that.
I really want you to think about that for just a second. So when you hear Zohran lie and then get caught in the lie and then lie again, or when Newsom lies and then gets caught in the lie and lies again, or any of these Democrats, right? When they do this kind, and by the way, Republicans do it too, but right now it seems to be more of a condition of the Democrat or the lefty mind that you lie about everything all the time in the name of the revolution. And why do they do it? Well, Jordan just explained it beautifully right there. Everything is, in other words, everything is basically for the purpose of now. It's just for the purpose of right now. What will accomplish the goal of right now more than anything else? So you lie, you get caught in the lie, and then you lie again. And you do it again and again and again and again. While normal people, sane people who aren't psychopaths, there's a reason not to lie. I would say there's a fundamentally human reason not to lie. It's not to say that people don't lie, and we've all done white lies and other bigger lies and everything else. We should all try not to lie, right? Obviously. But a normal person, you want to put truth in the world. What does Jordan always say about truth? Like, if you put truth into the world, then the best of the options will come back to you. It doesn't mean that goodness will happen, but if you think truth matters at all, you should try not to lie. And this guy is a serial liar who is likely going to be the Democratic nominee in 2028, God help us all. We will talk about Shopify for just a second, and then we will get back to an elderly man who governed by a pen in which he had no control over. If you've ever shopped online, chances are you've bought from a business that is powered by Shopify, and there's a reason so many businesses use it. Shopify doesn't just make it simple to buy, it makes it incredibly easy to start and run your own business. It's the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S., powering everything from household names to brand new startups. With Shopify, you can choose from hundreds of beautiful, ready-to-go templates to express your brand style. You can manage everything in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics, and even grow your audience with built-in marketing and email tools. So if you want to see fewer abandoned carts and more cha-chings, it's time to check out Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Rubin. That's shopify.com/Rubin. All right, so you remember Joe Biden. We're going to show you a video of him because they pulled him out again for just a second, which is interesting. I had said before he stepped away that we would see him 2 or 3 more times in a real public capacity. I think we're ballparking. Maybe it's been 3, 4, or 5 times. I don't think it'll be much more than a dozen, if anything, at this point for various reasons. But here is Kamala Harris, the woman who pulled a soft coup on the sitting president of the United States, who also helped hide his mental and cognitive decline for years. Here she is explaining to the BBC, this is wild, that he was fit to be president, just not fit to run for president.
I ask, was it on my behalf grace or recklessness to not raise the point with him about whether it was right for him to run? But let's be clear, my question was never about his capacity to be president.
But isn't it a strange message to the public to say, you know what, you need to be tougher and more able to run a political campaign than actually to be the person behind the desk in the Oval Office, to be the person making decisions in the Situation Room? So did you just not think it was that bad, or did you feel you just couldn't raise it?
I was concerned about his ability to run for re-election, given what the campaign would require.
And it's so consistent with all of the lying. Just stop lying for a second. Why not say, you know what, actually the reason I really was part of the, you don't have to say coup, because that sounds a little scary, but you could say the reason that Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and others and I sat him down and said this was because we really realized how bad, like, why not do it at this point? It's sort of like Karine Jean-Pierre. At this point, you're still out there defending the idea that we didn't see exactly what we saw. But you people still do it. The Peterson video that we just showed you is as applicable to Kamala Harris as it is to Gavin Newsom. But they did bring Joe Biden out again, and here he is turning down the rhetoric. We're always told to turn down the rhetoric, so they brought out an elderly figure to help us turn down the rhetoric.
In my over 50 years in elected public life, this is the worst I've seen it. It's time to get re-engaged. It's time to act, to fight like hell. This is no time to give up. It's time to get up. Get up now, get up.
Fight like hell, get up now. Look, I know he doesn't really know what he's saying, and he's reading the prompter, and he got a couple lines right there with a few jump cuts and everything else. But Joe Biden, or any Democrat that's still sane, what do you think the biggest problem is right now in America? You guys allowed 21 million people in 4 years. That was a problem. Donald Trump stopped that. You guys allowed endless mayhem in our blue cities and refused to do anything about it, and Donald Trump is cleaning that up. We are now getting better trade deals back to America via Donald Trump using tariffs as leverage, even though many of us don't like tariffs as a sort of general concept, but using them as leverage is a little bit different. We don't have things like the Inflation Reduction Act. Like, we are actually doing better, and most people there was that sort of at least temporary peace in the Middle East and the hostage return, that sort of thing. Right now, Donald Trump has been bouncing around Asia, making all sorts of deals. But you guys, okay, fight, have your rallies, no kings or anything else, and I guess just like keep getting off on your own supply, something like that. This is a clip from Jesse Waters' show on Fox, but he's going to throw to an MSNBC clip where they brought on Jonathan Karl, who is, I think, an ABC correspondent. That is a lot of credits that I'm reading out right there. But here they talk about a secret meeting where Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi prayed together.
Did you hear about the secret meeting? Pelosi snuck into the White House just to see the auto pen.
She goes to have a secret meeting with Joe Biden in the White House. As the meeting concludes, and Pelosi's not telling him directly to get out, but reiterating the message that she said to Jonathan, that these two devout Catholics take out their rosaries and they say a prayer together. And Pelosi leaves. It is the last time that they had any meaningful exchange of words.
This is a new scoop about the coup. Nancy was literally praying that Biden would bow out.
Right. That's first off, the way that Jonathan Karl, it's so amazing. They prayed to the rosary together. Who knows if any of it's even true, but let's pretend it's true. Is there any chance in high hell that Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden were praying for the same thing? Now, you would hope that maybe they were praying for wisdom, they were praying for guidance, answers. That would be like, sort of a bumper sticker version of what prayer should be. But Nancy was absolutely, if this story is true, so then they sit there with the rosaries and they're praying. Nancy The purpose of the meeting was to get him to step down. So that's likely what she was praying for in that room. And Joe did not want to step down. Don't take my word for it. He went on The View and said it. He thought he was just fine. So is there any chance they were praying for the same thing? It's all so stupid. But here is a queer woman of color who was part of the cover-up, explaining to us all that once again, and more than anything else, she is a queer woman of color.
Karine, do you have any regrets at all for anything that you said while you were speaking on behalf of this administration?
Look.
It's a simple yes or no. You don't even know.
No, because you're asking for a yes or no question. I want to put some context to it too. I woke up every day. I woke up every day very proud to be the White House press secretary. I woke up every day as a Black woman who is queer, who no one had ever seen someone like me at that podium standing behind that lectern. It was an honor and a privilege to have that job. And I did it to the best of my abilities.
Well, the key issue there is that your abilities were not very good. And that's why we made fun of you on this show every day. And you were part of a cover-up that you are now writing a book to pretend that that everything we saw we didn't even see. But no one cares that you're a Black queer woman. I also like how she says, I woke up every day as a Black queer woman, as if she woke up every morning and looked at it and, oh my God, I'm Black. It's literally, and oh my God, I like pussy. Like, that's not how it works. But it does remind me of the movie See No Evil, Hear No Evil, right at the beginning when Richard Pryor, he's blind and he's pretending to read the newspaper, but he's reading it upside down on the subway because he doesn't want people to think that he's blind. And then his sister's like, why do you do that? Everyone knows that you're blind. It would be like saying you're not, I'm Black. Go watch it on YouTube. Anyway, Katie Miller, not sure who she is, but she went on CNN and she explained that the only reason Karine Jean-Pierre is even relevant right now is because she is Black and queer, which apparently she just wakes up with every day.
What I think you're seeing and what Karen is attesting to is that she is quite incompetent to do the job, right? This is what Republicans have been saying for years now, is that she is just another evidence that DEI doesn't work, whether that's in the White House in your press secretary role, or whether that's an air traffic controller, an air pilot, whether that's your doctor. You want to hire the best for the role, not just based on skin color. Jake, why did she get the job over John Kirby?
She used to be a commentator on CNN, then she was one on MSNBC, and she was good at that. Like, I mean, I'm without getting into the job I thought she did as press secretary, I thought it didn't seem crazy to me because she was eloquent as a commentator.
Why is she trained every 4 sentences to say she is a Black, queer, LGBTQ woman? Because that's how she's been promoted her entire career.
Anyway, Katie Miller and Karen Finney, thank you so much. Thanks. Why is the Pentagon taking issue with the top movie on Netflix?
God, it's a beautiful thing. Thank God we don't have to throw to commercials like that because she makes. Why is she trained to say that every 4? Well, we've got to go to. I don't have time for that. Brought to you by Pfizer. Jake, might I recommend you comment? He's like, I'll comment that she was a commentator. Okay, that's fine. How about you comment on the job that you think she did? Sort of like how you didn't comment about Joe Biden's cognitive decline, but then wrote a book about it. So if in 6 months from now, you're suddenly going to be talking about Karine Jean-Pierre, I'm giving you a little something here. Go ahead and say it right now. She was horrible, inept, incompetent, buffoonish, but Black and queer. Which if I wake up Black and queer tomorrow, it would be kind of funny. Although, well, whatever. By the way, it turns out that Miller there, she's Stephen Miller's wife. So that's something. Here's Michelle Obama. And she's very upset because Black women's hair, apparently, I've discussed this many times with Sage Steele. This has come up a lot. Black women have a natural curlier hair as a general thing. And a lot of them straighten it. And because they straighten it, it's taking their time away. And that where they could be doing, I guess, more productive things. And that is a form of oppression. I can't believe I just said that as a sentence, but here.
As women of color, that the way our hair naturally grows out of our head, it's beautiful. But if we struggle to make it look like the standard, that means we are spending thousands of hours and lots of money straightening out what is naturally curly hair, right? And that takes time out of your life. It costs money.
So what? So don't do it if you don't want to. Don't straighten your hair, or do straighten it, but stop making it seem like that makes you a victim. You had to spend money. There were women with straight hair that curl their hair. What's a perm? Isn't that what a perm is? What year is this? In the 80s, perms were huge. So straight-haired women sometimes curl their hair. Curly-haired women sometimes straighten their hair. I guess guys do similar things, sometimes. Okay, what are you gonna do? Sometimes I get a little extra gray in my beard, put a little powder in there. I'm oppressed. I'm oppressed. I'm oppressed. All right, I'm gonna think about my oppression for a second. First, Noble Gold. No. Oh, I'm gonna read the Noble Gold ad. Okay, let's do it. Gold has officially gone mainstream. This is gonna be tough for me because I am an oppressed person who had to put a little color in the beard. Every day, more and more Americans are discovering the power of gold, but how do you actually take advantage of it and invest in a simple way? That's where Noble Gold Investments come in. Their specialists are trained to help investors like you go from confused to confident, whether you're looking to roll over an old 401k into a gold IRA or want physical coins and bars delivered right to your home. Noble Gold makes the process simple, secure, and stress-free. You'll get step-by-step guidance, transparent pricing, and US-based service from a trusted team that's handled over $2.5 billion in precious metal transactions. With Noble Gold Investments, protecting and growing your wealth isn't just their job, it's their commitment. Visit DaveRubinGold.com today to claim your free wealth protection kit. That's DaveRubinGold.com. Noble Gold, helping you build a stronger future, brought to you by a highly oppressed man. Tim Walz. Do you remember this Tim Walz fella? He was going to be vice president, had things gone really the wrong way, and he's basically always calling us all racists. A lot of people think he's a flaming homosexual. Anyway, it doesn't really matter to me. But here he is trying to explain that they're taking tax dollars to pay for Trump's ballroom. Completely untrue, and that somehow is the same money that they were going to put into food banks.
They are choosing not to. They are choosing not to. And I can paint any damn picture you want for you. They're paying contractors to tear down the East Wing, but they're not putting money into the food bank that they're setting on. So if there's a sense of frustration in America, it's
lies, 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 lies. Again, Donald Trump is paying for the ballroom and getting private donors to do it. It has nothing to do with the food bank stuff. But you, Tim Walz, could donate more to a food bank. What they always want to do, what progressives always want to do, is pretend they're good instead of doing good, right? They want to pretend they're good by saying, I want more of that person's stuff to do what I want with it because I'm a good guy. You know, they do polls on this all the time, and it turns out, we can fact check me live, it turns out that conservatives actually donate to charities and do charity work, something like 90% more than liberals, right? Like, how about you do something? Could you try doing something? And here's a bit more on this ballroom fiasco. Here's Karoline Leavitt explaining a bit about what's going on as Trump builds this thing.
To the ballroom and the Rose Garden patio, is the president looking at any other renovations or significant kind of projects here at the White House?
Not to my knowledge, no. But he's a builder at heart, clearly, and so his heart and his mind is always churning about how to improve things here on the White House grounds. But at this moment in time, of course, the ballroom is really the president's main priority.
Okay, so watch what we're about to show you here, because this is like almost very fine people level dishonesty from Chuck Schumer. So she's asked a question about what he's doing in terms of building, and she says that the ballroom is the priority as it pertains to building. You all heard it very clearly right there. Here's Chuck Schumer yesterday on that exact quote.
Know him. $300 million for his ballroom. In fact, his ballroom says that is his main priority. Can you believe that? You can't make this stuff up.
His ballroom says that's his main priority. You mean Karoline Leavitt said that, but you took the sentence completely out of context? The question was about priorities as it pertains to doing things at the White House, and then you put up that image completely out of context and say that? They lie. They lie, they lie, they lie, they lie. That's what they do. Thank God we have better people in power right now. Listen to this from Fox. Vice President J.D. Vance says troops will be paid as pressure builds on Congress to end the shutdown. J.D. Vance says that he believes the U.S. military members will be paid at the end of the week as the Trump administration reconfigures funding in the second longest government shutdown. So yes, people are not being paid right now. I think it's about 1.3 million government workers. Usually what happens in this, when they have these shutdowns, is they are all furloughed and then they get the back pay. What they're trying to do, this current administration, is rejigger things right now so that these guys do get paid, because we have competent people in power right now. Here's Scott Bessent talking to Kristen Welker, explaining that this really is, it's just the Democrats. It's just the Democrats doing this, and that this is all really about AOC, who I hate to tell you, Chuck Schumer is about to run against you for Senate. It's about her poll numbers.
The president has to lead. You have to get people into a room. You have to get a deal. When's he going to do that?
Well, he is leading, and there's no deal to do with Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer is trading off his polls. What's different than when he passed a clean CR in the spring? It's his polls. You know, the whole country's being held captive to AOC's polls. Well, let's look at the numbers. It's 52-3. 52 Republicans have voted, I believe it's 11 times, to reopen the government. 3 Democrats have. And right here, right now, I would urge moderate Democratic senators to come across the aisle, reopen the government, because I'll tell you, we're starting to eat into muscle here. This is starting to affect travel. It's starting to affect the economy. And, you know, this is quixotic. I don't know what the purpose is. I'm not sure they do.
I get it, her like little moaning as he's answering. Yeah, you need 7 moderate Democrats, but there aren't any to get to 60, pass a clean CR, which is how this always goes. But the reason it won't happen is because Chuck is worried about AOC. They have lost control of their own people. Chuck knows he's been in that seat for 30 years, something like that, and he doesn't want to lose to AOC. So the inmates are running the asylum, and good luck with all of that. And what will be continually interesting is the longer this goes on. Again, my position has basically been, I don't think most people care. I just don't think they do. But I would like our members of the military to be paid. So it's good to see that we're able to move some money around for those people. But I think we will also find out that plenty of these people in middle management, government jobs don't need their jobs well, they may need their job or they may want their job, but their jobs are actually not that essential in the first place. CNN's Abby Phillip, a woman who, as you know, I often say there's just not going along, there's just not behind the eyes. There's just not much happening there. But she's got the show where they let Scott Jennings smack around some of these leftist dingbats. Here she is talking about how Trump actually, because every now and again she says something that's sort of right, how Trump actually has incorporated a lot of Democrat ideas. Is it possible that maybe he's not a radical conservative lunatic, kind of Hitler-y? Maybe?
When you look at what Trump is doing as president, in a way, he's challenging capitalism. He's putting tariffs on countries indiscriminately, just because he wants to, making the case that he's doing it for Americans. He is taking government stakes in private companies. That's a Bernie Sanders idea, by the way. He is creating a government website where people can shop around for prescription drugs, another Bernie Sanders idea. So his willingness to just take some of these ideas the Democrats have been talking about and just do them, no matter how controversial they are, has been one of the things that, whether you like him or not, what people will say about Trump is that he does what he says. And I think that Democrats, one of the big problems that they have is that voters don't think they're going to do what they say.
That's a fact.
They say all the right things, but they don't think they're going to do what they say.
Again, she just comes off as so not bright, but, you know, broken clock is right twice a day. So first off, I don't know if that's exactly challenging capitalism. Also, the tariffs aren't indiscriminate. They are extremely pointed at the countries that we have trade imbalances with. But okay, she's trying to ballpark in something. She says that there will be a government stake in certain private companies. That is true, and that's not a purely conservative Republican idea. The government website to get cheaper drugs, again, that's not left to the full private market, which would be a much more conservative idea. So the point is that Trump, not only she is correct when she says that Trump does what he's going to say he's going to do, but Trumpism and MAGA is not a purely conservative political movement. That's the beauty. Trump, for better or worse, he chooses different things. It's how he's been able to widen the tent. It's how he's able to take someone like, I don't know, Bobby Kennedy, whose last name is Kennedy, and that used to have a little something to do with a moderate, truly liberal Democrat Party. He's able to take a guy like that, who he was at complete odds with 2 years ago, bring him into his cabinet, and then have Bobby Kennedy's wife say this about Trump.
Has he upheld all the commitments he made to Bobby when he joined his ticket?
He has. That was another thing too, right? When Bobby joined his ticket, I got another round of phone calls from people saying, he's going to make Bobby look foolish. He's never going to go through with this. He just wants Bobby's supporters. And but those people never called me back to say, oh, hey, he actually is working for the president and they're getting a lot of stuff done, just like he said.
Isn't that something? Isn't that something? That is Cheryl Hines, who is Hollywood 101. She is best known for being Larry David's wife on Curb Your Enthusiasm. Larry David, who's a progressive leftist complete moron. His work is much better than his personal politics, which unfortunately over the years it gets very hard to separate those things from people. But she risked a lot, right? And I have no doubt, she's talked about it publicly, that it was a big risk for her career to have Bobby do this. But what did Donald Trump do? He's done the right thing and he hasn't lied. And it wasn't about just getting the voters. It was allowing Bobby to now do what he said his mission in life is, which is to make America healthier. And that fully fits within the MAGA movement. And yes, of course, that part where she says the friends who all called her to say he was going to make a fool of Bobby, they never call back when they're like, oh boy, he is getting seed oil out of things. And now, what is it? Steak and Shake is using beef tallow and yada, yada, yada. We're poisoning ourselves just a little bit yet less, which used to be a nonpartisan idea. But okay, let's continue because the lies of these people. So we've illustrated an awful lot of lies. Let's go back to the liar in chief. I am talking about Lizard Man himself, Gavin Newsom. Here he is saying that Rogan just refused to have him on this entire time and now he's over it and he's not even very impressed with Joe Rogan.
He wanted, look, he hasn't, for years and years, he's been attacking me, and it's one way, and he won't have me on. He's consistently not having me on. By the way, I'm moving on. I have no interest.
You're done with him?
Joe Rogan's the Facebook of podcasting. He was sitting across one of the brightest minds in podcasting right now. The guy was in the mic, and there are a lot of people at the mic doing extraordinary things in podcasting.
Joe Rogan's got a pretty big audience still, though.
You know what? But with all due respect, if he has a big audience but he doesn't have big enough confidence, I didn't go there, to have me on.
Well, you've called him a chicken.
Yes. Look, I don't know that Rogan has refused to have him on. What Gavin purposely did there was, now I don't want to be on, right? Because that's his way. Rogan averages about 11 million downloads per episode. He is number one. Like, he is absolutely number one. But of course you're afraid of him. Okay, it doesn't even matter. What's interesting, the reason I wanted to play that clip was really because I wanted to get to this clip, because Barack Obama, another man who relentlessly lies about everything. And then what happens when the liars get caught over time and time and time? They need something to control the lies. So one of the reasons they've hated Elon so much is over the last 3 years, it was 3 years ago last week, that Elon bought then Twitter, now X. And then what happened? It became a place where we could debunk some of the lies. So because these guys don't want the lies debunked, sort of like Barack Obama, day before the election, doing the Very Fine People hoax, what do they want to do? Here he is at a talk, this is a day or two ago, talking about how there are going to be new experiments with journalism. And of course, yes, the government's going to have to regulate.
Part of what we're going to have to do is to start experimenting with new forms of journalism and how do we use social media in ways that reaffirm facts, separate facts from opinion. By the way, it will require some government, I believe, some government regulatory constraints around some of these business models.
So that's pretty interesting. So he wants some sort of government regulatory commission. It always, of course, at the end of the day, it's always government. And now the funny part is, Trump is in charge of the government right now. So you want the government to have the power to tell us what is fact or fiction? I mean, that just is inherently completely absurd. That is basically like the ground zero of stupidity when it comes to leftism. Leftism, the government is bad, power is bad, blah, 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 is always bad. How can we stop it? Give it more money, give it more power. That is the ultimate easy argument when you're arguing with one of these people. Okay, you hate the entire thing, then stop giving it power. You might want to starve it, right? That would be a better way. But reaffirm facts. Okay, Barack Obama, you want facts reaffirmed? Well, you, the day before the election, went with the Very Fine People hoax. So do you want the government to come after you for that? Well, our founding fathers had some ideas when it came to what the government can do as it pertains to your speech and fact and fiction. You may have heard of this before. This is the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights of the Constitution. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble and petition the government for a redress of grievances. Of course, every now and again that does get suspended, like when you couldn't assemble with your friends during COVID, or when the government, Democrat government, with his VP, Joe Biden, was working with big tech to silence us during COVID. But I guess nothing's perfect. I'm tired. We did it, guys. We got through a show. Thanks for watching. Oh, we'll do a post-game show. I am tired, but I'm a professional broadcaster. This is what I do for a living. I'm going to do it. RubinReport.locals.com in 30 seconds. Back tomorrow.